So first action item we have is Bruce Wilcox to discuss the Salton Sea Restoration and Renewable Energy Initiative framework document. There is a executive summary in the back, a white paper, if you will, and then there's some CDs if you want to have comments on it. This is a fairly thick document. It looks, I think it's over, what, 300 pages or something?
250 anyway.
250. And if you're an engineer, you probably understand it all.
And I'm an ecologist, and I understand most of it. So, what's in front of you today is a request to ask for a public release of that document. The document's been prepared over the last 6 months by a lot of folks. Jessica from Lavecchio from our office, a lot of the other folks in our group, Dudak and Cardinal-Entrix, and the steering committee, which is composed of both counties, the water districts, and others, have put a lot of effort into this. And it's a draft document, and what it's meant to do is give some sort of comprehensive plan, or at least a concept plan for restoration at the Salton Sea, development of renewable energy at the Salton Sea, and air quality mitigation at the Salton Sea. And we spent a lot of time. The county partnered with us on this document, and we appreciate their help. We've worked a lot with Brad and with Andy and Richard and others. The document lays out about 4 or 5 different scenarios of what might be done around the Salton Sea. In reality, when we get to that point, we'll actually be doing probably some amount of each of the different scenarios going forward. But we wanted to make the document as CEQA-esque as we could, so when we moved into CEQA, we could take the advantage of the alternative analysis in the document and use it for CEQA. It also has it's a GIS-based program, so most of the drawings and most of the background information is on a GIS system that we'll download to IID's system next week. It has a cost calculator in it that you can use to decide if you want to build more habitat, less habitat, more geothermal, or not. And we've had a lot of discussions with different state and federal agencies about this document, and for the most part, I would say they're very excited to see it and get it. So hopefully after today we can share that with them, and I think then there will be a series of meetings to discuss particulars of the document and how it might move forward, particularly how it might move forward with the funding scenarios that are in the executive summary and the development summaries that are in, or development alternatives that are in the executive summary, and then how it might move forward with the Salton Sea Task Force, who is aware of the document. I think in general, those are the biggest pieces of it. It is a draft document. We're welcoming any input. We'd like to see that. We spent a lot of time with the Salton Sea Authority and with their consulting team in embedding this document into the larger scale Salton Sea Restoration Program. I'm happy to answer any questions, and Joanna might want to talk a little bit about the executive. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is there any questions of the board? And then I'll open it up to the public.
I had one question. I don't know whether now's the proper time. I'll throw it out there. It has to do with the funding sources, and I'm making reference back to the draft document that was given to us originally, particularly page 20, where it talks about funding sources, and it mentions renewable energy development royalties. And I wanted to make sure that it was clarified that that was not subsurface royalties.
Okay, we can clarify that.
Director Hanks, we did try to catch that on the front end here in advance of your board's vote today, but we will stipulate that the pledge is only to IID lands, not to mineral rights.
Okay, all right.
And Kevin, if you could help us as far as the genesis of this document. I know when I got on the board, we were waiting for the state to put together essentially a action plan, and they'd put together their $9 billion alternative. What's happened since then? We filed the petition. Is this a response to the petition? Because I get those questions.
We actually, as you know, we had this study in the works prior to the petition, and we missed the mark by a couple of months. But Bruce Wilcox is right. our primary audience at this point, aside from the public we serve, is that task force in Sacramento. That task force was formed coming out of our petition to the state board.
Mm-hmm.
It was formed by the Brown administration, and this document, it is competing against the only other plan that's out there, and that one has a price tag of $9 billion. By contrast, in the financial summary that's part of the white paper, we are asking for $1 billion from the state's general fund, $1 billion from state-issued revenue bonds, $1 billion from the cap and trade program, and $150 million from proposition. So $3.1 billion in change. It's a bargain compared to $9 billion, which everyone agrees has only served to impede any real discussion about what to do with the Salton Sea.
Yeah, and to add to that, remember, anytime we've talked at the state or the federal level about help with the Salton Sea, we've heard the recurring message, you need to have a comprehensive plan or a concept plan. You can't have one project here and one project over here that doesn't work. So this is an answer to that. It's not the final answer. I'm sure it'll get some adjustments to it, but it is that answer that looks out over 30 years or thereabouts, and how we can answer the air quality issues and the habitat issues and the renewable energy initiative issues at the state level, and the other two at the Salton Sea level.
But this doesn't speak to any sort of governance structure or anything different than what exists today, right? It's still the state's obligation. IID's proposing a framework for them to implement, but we're not accepting responsibility with this document.
Our intention is to fill that void that exists right now, where the only marker is this $9 billion plan that everyone agrees is a non-starter. So we now are proffering to the state not only a short-term plan, but an overarching concept for longer-term restoration.
And I think another important tenet of that is the fact that it doesn't preclude any other kind of Salton Sea restoration. These are, to borrow a term from the state, no regrets projects. No matter what happens from a restoration point of view, whether it's an importing of water or some other kind of plan that goes forward, this will fit into those plans and will be a long-term habitat ecosystem restoration program.
Okay. Are you seeking a motion to approve this draft and then?
We're seeking a direction from the board to allow public, to release it to public for comment. I don't know if that's a motion, quite frankly, or.
Mr. President, I make a motion to release this to all the interested parties listed.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you. At this time, I'd open it up for public comment if there's anyone that wishes to speak in favor or against, or just comments on this if you want to speak now or submit written comments. I know you haven't had a real chance to review it, but I think some of the advisory team might be here.
Sefton Brawley, and I'd just like to say that I think it's very important that IID step up and take the lead, because it's your residents and ratepayers, myself included, that are most directly impacted by what happens at the Salton Sea. You own most of the land that's going to be impacted in the short term, and absent a real viable move from the state to take care of this, I think it's necessary for IID to take a leadership position just in the sense of making a plan. Putting a plan on the table does not accept full responsibility to pay for the job, that you want the state to step in and do their part, which is the major part financially. So I would encourage the board to make this available for public comment, and to allow those comments to turn this into the best document possible. Thanks.
Thanks. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Board. John Hernandez, 514J. I don't know what to think. I'm just, like you say, it's the first time this is out there. But I see on the website, sprinkling of a few pages of what then I read in the newspaper is going to be a 260-page document. Then I see here, just the opening of discussion. So I get a little uneasy feeling as to whether or not I, as a ratepayer, and you, as a board member, are really getting the full picture here. I just get that feeling, and then all I'm going to say at this time, before even reviewing it, is that in your decisions, in the development, because that's basically what we're looking at as the tool for some of the restoration efforts, that the ratepayers be in the front seat, the driver's seat, not in the back seat, to what some of the ratepayers that I talked to was the perception that we had with development up to this point of what's been into the valley. So on the one hand, I'm encouraged to see that we're working together with the county, we're working together with the state, but we also need to work together in the best interest of the future of this valley. Because we're looking at 30 years from now, 40 years from now, I don't think we're going to be around, but we certainly have the same region, the same area. And I don't know if the pipe dream is in there, but the more I look at this, that pipe dream doesn't, again, appear to be as far away as some of the things that we're learning in space right now. That some of these things, are starting to say, okay, well, let's take a look at that. If we do need water, let's midterm, long term, let's not just throw that out the window and say, well, we can't find anybody to buy into it here. I heard a couple county board of supervisors talking about that. I haven't heard anyone on this board talk about that, but we certainly, the air quality is going to affect Mexico just like it's going to affect our valley. So we got to see how we can work that out. So maybe the C2C issue is something that could be included in the mid to long term plans of this paper. So that's just my initial comments as I try to kind of look at this. Thank you.
Well, I'll respond briefly to that while I wait for Andy to get up to the podium. It doesn't preclude C2C or any other particular alternative. I think what it does do, though, is realize that we need to do something short term while those plans are explored.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Andy Horn from the County of Imperial. I was honored and privileged to be a part of the, what did we call it? The steering committee, yeah. And and I want to congratulate Bruce and his team because they really have worked hard on putting this thing together. The county appreciated the opportunity to work on this. I know that you have talked to a number of county agencies, including the APCD, and we've had a couple of meetings with our planning department. Richard Cavanilla, who's a senior planner over there, was also directly and heavily involved in reviewing this, in helping to guide the process. And reviewing is another matter because we just now have gotten copies of the thing. It looks to be consistent with the general framework and concepts that were discussed during those steering committee meetings, but there's a lot of information there, and I don't know what the review timeline is going to look like. We would like to have the opportunity to look the thing over. We have some of the discussion we've had at the county with Bruce and his folks is trying to align this effort with some projects that the county is working on, specifically our general plan update projects. There are two, one for renewable energy and transmission, and the other one is for conservation and open space element that we're in the process of updating. And it appears that we have made some strides in getting that done. But again, we'd like it would be a good idea. I have two requests. One, that we have at least one more and perhaps a couple more steering committee meetings where now we have the document where those people who have been involved in it can look at it in detail and provide some feedback as to, and then we also be given the opportunity to provide comments independently as the county. And my second request is that since nominally, when you look at the face of the thing, and there's the IID logo and the county logo there, that our Board of Supervisors perhaps be given an opportunity to hear a presentation on the some of the particulars. We don't have to go through the whole 260 pages, but hit the high spots and bring them up to speed perhaps on some of the elements of this and how it would view to be going forward in the future. Thank you.
I think we'd be happy to do that. And there will be a comment period. I'm not so sure we've decided exactly how long, but the idea is that this is sort of a living document or an adaptive management program or whatever the buzzword or buzz phrases are.
All right, is there any further public comment? I would just like to say thank you, Bruce, and Ms. Lavecchio. It's a lot of work to put this together. My former life as an engineer, I used to do stuff like this, and I cringe when I see things with that many color exhibits. But you did a great job, and thank you for that.
And biologists like colors, so we.
exactly.
I wanted to say thank you to all the steering committee members, to the board, to the GM. Everybody, it's a pretty nice example of what we can do if we work together. Thank you.
I'm going to have one comment though. It seems to be light on some of the potential options that we didn't explore, or just to bullet point some of the things like C2C to look for in the long term, or even if we're not exploring it in this, just put a place marker, if you will, and then on potential funding sources, things that the IID looked at but decided not to use because of the viewpoint of the board. I think it's important to state that we're not looking to pay for the future restoration of the sea because it's something that was anticipated in the water transfer in the beginning. So what this board agreed to back in 2003 was that they paid into a fund for mitigation, and then the state was on the hook for restoration. And I think it's important to put in here just in case someone 10 years from now, whatever, says, well, why didn't they look at this? And why aren't they paying for it, you know?
We'll do that.
Well, a point of clarification. We did join the JPA, but the state is contractually obligated on the mitigation also once that money is expended.
Correct.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's contractually obligated. And as to their responsibility to restoration, let's just all remain cognizant of the fact that they did pass the Salton Sea Restoration Act. They just didn't fund it.
So I didn't see a lot of there were some of the different legislative actions in here, but it didn't really state who was responsible, and
All right, we'll beef
have
that
some
up.
detailed notes on it.
Cool.
It
Just-
sounds like my fellow board members want to have an Appendix A, which would be the petition stapled to it.
Wouldn't be a bad idea.
I just don't want them to take my appendix.
I do, I mean, it bears note that the circulation of this, when we submit it to the Salton Sea Task Force in the governor's office, I think we're going to copy members of the State Water Resources Control Board.
Yes.
Thanks again, Bruce. Good job.
Thank you. Is there any other comment? Does Farm Bureau have any comment at this time? Or yes, please step forward.
Thank you again, Kerry Morrison. I'm excited to see that this plan is going through, that there are plans for specific acreages, specific wetlands. That's wonderful, but I do understand, after interviewing probably more than anyone else has interviewed people about the Salton Sea. This area is going to run out of water in the long run. The Colorado River is not getting any bigger, and I don't see anyone wanting to just give us a lot of water. So
That's why Arizona's here today. They're willing to give us some
thank
of
you,
their water.
Arizona. In the spirit of bringing awareness to future potential water resources and making sure that organizations such as IID have the resources needed to give those to their customers, we are going to do a sequel to the Salton Sea Walk. Has everyone heard of the Salton Sea Walk? Yay, Bruce. So this brought many, many eyes of the public to the Salton Sea around the fact that it needs something done quick, great, and it deserves restoration, and this was why. And we explained that in quite a few different videos, events, etc. We're going to walk to the Sea of Cortez next November. Not in any way putting down this. We're excited that things are getting started, but in the long term, it would be great to see that there is a sustainable water source for this area, and we know that is one of two options, Cortez or the Pacific, or just find some mystical river that we haven't seen yet. But we wanted to let you know that that is in the pipeline as far as plans, and do this in the large scale to support water resources for this valley in the long term, not just for a fix in a year or two. So thank you very much.
If I can, I do want to be clear,
Remember.
and I'm sure you've already seen this because you're closer to it than most anybody. This is for a smaller body of water.
Yes.
And that's only because the audience that we're dealing with is wrestling with drought.
Yeah.
But as Bruce said, if it were to be, if we could work out a water arrangement binationally,
Mm-hmm.
there would be nothing in this plan to preclude that from happening.
Exactly, and that's why I'm happy to hear what he said with that. And I think it could be a great thing for a long-term additional solution.
And while I'm at it and thinking about it, you know those two music festivals, Carrie, in the Coachella Valley?
I do.
Wouldn't it be great if there were a banner that said "Save the Salton Sea" at the next?
We'll be on that. we got that. We're working for.
Thank you.
So we'd like to help put pressure on the state and the federal branches to show that we need more water in this area in the long term. I'd like to speak with some of you in the future. Thank you.
Thanks.
And Kerry's been instrumental in a lot of this too, and he was one of the ones that helped bring the high school kids up to the board hearing, which was a very powerful testimony.
And they all made it home okay? All right.
surprised the people from Coachella did.
All right. If there's no further comment, I'll ask for your vote to release it. Thanks. Thank you.